The Quarry is a strange, cool, yet frustrating branching path game, in both good and bad ways. Just like I said in my last review, it was made by Supermassive Games, which also made the pseudo-branching path game Until Dawn. My criticism of that game was it pretty much pigeonholed you into a lot of narrative choices until the last bit of the game. After that review, I decided to give The Quarry a shot to see how they improved since their breakout title. For anyone who wants to play the game without spoilers, I will say this game was meant for the PlayStation 5. There are clearly lots of times they tried to flex the ray tracing like in the water effects and in the mirrors, but on the PS4, it does not translate well. That's what I get for not paying an extra $10. I will also say the amount of replay value is pretty good, unlike Until Dawn. There's a couch co-op feature where you can set the difficulty for the person playing, like increasing the QTE timer. You can also play online co-op where the other person gets to control your game, but you also control the game as well? I don't know, I couldn't find anyone to play it with me.
Stop crying, you big baby.
The game also has a movie mode where you can set it so everyone will live or die. Or you can set all the characters' attributes and see how the story plays out. Like if they're abrasive or passive. You can even set how frequently they will fail QTEs, which is at least an interesting addition. There is also a streamer mode, which changes the music to royalty-free. But I would advise against this since most of the music is not as good as the licensed. So I'm of the idea that your game can have a good story but bad gameplay, or bad gameplay but a good story. But ideally you would shoot for both, but if not, prioritize one. If both are bad, then that is a serious problem. Basically, if you're the type of person that enjoys gameplay over story, maybe skip this one. To set how this review will go, I will break down as many story beats as possible, and then discuss how my second playthrough went, as well as play through the final sections of the game again to see how much of a branching path this game really is, and also to try to get the best possible ending. At the very end, I will give my conclusion. Also, when I'm dissecting the plot, just assume that there was a choice there, since if I were to discuss every choice you had to make in this game, I would never get through this review. Now, with the formalities out of the way, let's game. So it starts with some royalty-free music, which is strange how calming it is compared to the licensed music. This is a reoccurring problem in the game. Just don't turn on the streaming mode unless you want to listen to some dollar store beats. For real, they're okay, they just don't mesh well sometimes. We are then introduced to the game's first two characters, Max and Laura, who are at the moment lost on a back road. The game stops the cutscene here to show this cute animation, which I swear they must have resurrected Rod Sterling himself to voice this section.
Take a moment to consider the following, as it will guide you through the various twists and turns that may appear during your stay at Hackett's Quarry.
There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man.
These videos explain certain gameplay mechanics like QTEs or narrative choices, but they aren't too important to the story, and they just serve as tutorials, with varying degrees of success on how they explain the mechanics. One thing I will point out here is the dialogue between the characters throughout the game is actually pretty good. They kept me entertained and was actually able to make me laugh a few times.
You know, if Columbus hadn't got lost and landed on these golden shores, there would be no United States of America.
Columbus never actually landed in North America.
What are you talking about?
Just another guy who didn't want to admit he was lost.
Well, just another guy who's got a whole day named after him, so put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Anyways, they swerve out of the road to avoid hitting something and crash their car. While Max is fixing the car, Laura snoops in Max's bag and sees that he didn't get accepted into college. This is of minor importance to the game. Laura shrugs this off and explores the woods, because she thinks they may have hit someone or something. She gets startled by this ghost that reappears a lot throughout the game and runs back to the car. And while the car is fixed, they're stuck in the mud. Just then, a shady-looking cop with a little bit of blood on his neck starts asking questions before helping you out of the ditch. He interrogates them further, and after learning they're camp counselors on their way to Hackett's Quarry, he informs them that they are a day early and orders them to go to the Harbinger Motel. But Laura pulls some slick shit and is able to guesstimate the location. They arrive, and of course no one is there since they're a day early.
Max, can we just look around before we jump to conclusions?
Did you actually even talk to Mr. Hackett, or did you just leave a message?
Well, what's the difference?
This is the difference.
Man, you stupid bitch!
After doing some investigating, Laura finds a locked cellar, and she thinks someone is in it. With Max's help, they bust the lock and go inside. A funny thing to note here is Max says this.
You've seen The Evil Dead, right?
Which is actually kind of funny, because Ted Raimi? I don't know if I pronounced that right. But this guy, who plays the cop, was actually in Evil Dead 2016. They investigate before Max is attacked by something. I chose to help Max try to escape, but he's pulled into the darkness before Laura is stuck in the neck with a needle by the same cop who pulled them over earlier. Okay, so after every chapter, there's this section where you are visited by this old fortune teller woman, which kind of acts like the totem poles in Until Dawn, where when you find them, you can see a possible future. In this game, you have to find tarot cards that are hidden around the map, and if there are 3 of them in a chapter, you're only allowed to view one potential future. They can be a bit of a pain in the ass to find, since they aren't just laying on the ground like the totem poles. You actually have to be in a very specific spot, and the camera will change from third person to isometric. I do like how the mechanic works in this game better, but I do wish that there were more static camera shots like this. So after the fortune teller, we see Hackett's Quarry proper, but it's been 2 months later from the events that happened to Max and Laura, and summer camp has just finished. All the kids have left and the counselors are packing up. We're then introduced to our cast of characters. Jacob, the stereotypical jock character, Caitlin, the perceptive know-it-all, Nick, the British funny guy, Dylan, the smart guy, Ryan, the serious loner, Abigail/Abby, the emo-styled quiet artistic chick, and Emma, the stuck-up hot chick. The perfect formula for a teen horror movie. So after Jacob gets the bags in the car, he talks to Caitlin about Emma, still hiding that he is bitter about their breakup, even though it seems like she made it very clear that it was just a summer fling. With the help of Caitlin, he sabotages the car by either taking out the rotor arm or ripping the gas line. Also, take note that she helps him do this, because to me this is a major plot hole later. It then switches to Abby and Emma, whose bags are locked in the cabin. I chose to not let Emma break in, and surprisingly, this does come back later in a strange way that I wouldn't figure out until my second playthrough. Also, a quick rant right here, but does Emma's face seem a little weird to you guys? I don't know why, but the uncanny valley side of my brain is triggered when I see her face. Like, am I crazy, but does it not seem like she just got her wisdom teeth removed? Or something like that? I've seen videos of this actress, and if you watch Orville, you will definitely recognize her. And she's not a bad looking lady. But for some reason, when I see her in the game, she looks like she's got cotton swabs stuffed in her cheeks. Let me know in the comments if anybody experienced this or if I'm just crazy. Anyways, so Abby finds this vial of blood, which is added to the evidence. Okay, quick explanation. In this game, there's evidence and clues. Clues don't affect the story at all, other than your own curiosity. But when evidence is collected, it contributes towards the ending of the game. So they drive the golf cart back to camp. Nothing that important happens here for the rest of the chapter, although Ryan does tell the group about a podcast he's been listening to called Bizarre Yet Bonafide, They've been talking about a woman that died in a fire around the area, and they referred to her as the Hag of Hackett's Quarry. This is addressed later, but just keep it in mind for now. Ryan then talks to Mr. Hackett privately, and after they get the keys, find out that the car won't start for obvious reasons, and Mr. Hackett gets like really fucking pissed here. He tells them all to stay in the cabin until morning, and he puts Ryan in charge and then leaves, which probably wasn't a good idea since none of the group really seems to respect his leadership. The teens being teens immediately decide to throw the party and split up to find party supplies, and as of right now, everything is going according to Jacob's plan to win back Emma.
Nick and Abby, you go get some firewood. Emma and I will go to the stores for some supplies. And Dylan, you just, I don't know, figure out how to charge the phones.
I just find it kind of funny that Jacob gives everybody something to do but Ryan, since they really don't seem to like each other.
Yeah, dude, it's just like kaput.
All right, let me try.
What, dude, I'm telling you, all right, it's busted.
Well, maybe you're doing it wrong.
Maybe you're doing it wrong.
What the fuck, dude?
Enough!
So Jacob and Emma break into the merchandise shack to find food, and instead find a gun and some torn up bags, which is added into the evidence.
You're not scared of clowns?
What? No, they're funny.
You think this is supposed to be funny?
I mean, yeah.
You want to join 20 of my sexy clown friends in a tiny car that somehow fits us all like it's no big deal?
Yeah. What?
Moment's gone.
Not forgotten.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
But I think we all know the most dankest piece of evidence here, and that being the peanut butter pops.
Pop, pop, peanut butter pops.
There is also a useless choice here where you can pick up some fireworks in the safe, which I'll explain why they're useless later. There's also some sort of like Dragon Age affinity quest where Dylan and Ryan get more comfortable with each other, stating that they're both bi. Oh yeah, and they find a secret surveillance room in the closet, which they brush off as a Bigfoot hobby for Chris Hackett. Abby and Nick bond a little bit in the forest while collecting some kindling. There's also a shooting tutorial in the form of a contest between Nick and Jacob over the peanut butter pops before everyone settles down around the campfire. They play some Truth or Dare, which gives a bit of context to some of the characters before Caitlin dares Emma to kiss Nick or Jacob. And Emma shows Jacob that it's over between them when she decides to kiss Nick. This obviously pisses Abby and Jacob off, so they both storm off into the woods in opposite directions. Nick goes after Abby, while Emma goes after Jacob. Nick and Abby seem to reconcile before Nick is attacked by a creature in the woods and Abby runs off to get help. Meanwhile, Jacob is pouting and skipping rocks on the pier like he's in fucking Dawson Creek or something. Like, come on. As far as cliches go, you can't get any more blatant than this. So Emma catches up with Jacob and she does some classic bitchy hot girl response, bragging about how much of a better kisser Nick was just to piss him off. But Jacob cools right down when she suggests skinny dipping with him. But, like, she still keeps her underwear on, so it kind of defeats the purpose, but whatever. It then occurs to me that this game was definitely downgraded for the PS4. I mean, look at these water graphics here. So Jacob gets overly sentimental, and this turns Emma off, and she swims away. Just then, she hears Abby screaming in the forest, but uh-oh, he dropped the rotor arm in the lake. So another choice is given to us. I decided to get the rotor arm, and Jacob finds a bloated body underneath the pier, which is also added into evidence. And once again is the second piece of evidence that can be missed by not following a specific path. It cuts back to the campfire where Ryan, Dylan, and Caitlin are just chilling out. And Caitlin reveals that she gave Emma the dare because she knew Emma would pick Nick, and that would force Nick to confess his feelings to Abby. As for Emma and Jacob, it seems like she figured this would be a toss-up as to which way it would go. Just then, Abby comes back out of the forest screaming and relays to the group what happened to Nick. So Ryan takes the gun and runs off into the woods to save him. Ryan reaches Nick, but he's being dragged off by what I can only describe as a 6-foot-tall brick shithouse before Ryan shoots him, and the guy just kind of runs away. It then switches to Jacob, who's running through the forest, and for some reason didn't retrieve his clothes. He then gets his ass snagged in a snare trap, and is at the mercy of this big redneck-looking dude covered in blood that was trying to capture Nick. The guy actually lets Jacob down and pours all this blood over his face and kind of walks off again.
What are you doing? Stop! Help! Help!
Tastes bad, man. It's for your own good.
Back at the campfire, the group briefly debates cutting off Nick's leg since it looks infected from whatever bit him, but they decide not to. Jacob makes it back to camp and tells them all what has been happening on his end and demands the gun to go save Emma. There's a little fisticuffs here between Jacob and Ryan before Jacob just gets frustrated and leaves to save Emma on the island she swam to by rowing out to her in a boat that's being kept at the end of the zip line. This is what I would say is kind of one of the worst plot holes in the game. I mean, Jacob literally just risked his life saving the rotor arm. Why isn't he telling them, hey, I got the rotor arm for the car? Or even just requesting to meet them all back at the cabin to try to fix the car. But I think I know why.
And what, risk another run-in with Captain Deliverance?
It's for your own good.
It then switches to Emma, who is completely unaware of the danger and is recording a video for her followers and using a flashlight. Hope she's got a good battery. Also, where the hell is she keeping her phone? I'm actually recording the audio and I just realized this. Anyways, this part is super boring, especially if you don't like vloggers, and it goes on for 20 minutes longer than it should. She finds some clothes and a monster in the cabin. She runs around a little bit and manages to lock herself in and the monster out of the cabin. It switches back to the lodge, and the group have managed to get Nick back there with the help of a wheelbarrow. Ryan and Dylan go off and try to contact the local authorities, but are unsuccessful.
Who should I call?
911.
You mean 911? Who says 911? Anyway, yeah, but like what should I ask for? Like police? Ambulance?
Well, do you need to specifically ask for an ambulance, or can you just say, help, help?
So they'll say, 911, what's your emergency? And I'll say, help, help, my friends may have been attacked by bears, but maybe not a bear, but definitely an animal with teeth. And then one of them was kidnapped by these hunter guys with blood on their faces, and there may have been shots fired, but not by us, but also maybe by us. And they cut my friend Jacob down from a tree. Separate incident. Long story.
Yeah, that's good.
They decide to go to the Radio Shack while giving Caitlin the gun they found in Mr. Hackett's office so she can protect Nick and Abby. Also, why does it hang on this shot for so long after I confirmed to give the gun to Caitlin?
Am I interrupting something?
It doesn't even show us handing the gun to her. It just skips to the next scene. Like, maybe they were trying to build up romantic tension between Dylan and Ryan or something. Anyways, it jumps back to Emma, who decides to make a break for it and crank the zipline back and escapes. I don't know why, but for some reason a thought just came into my head while recording this. Like, I don't know why, it would have been so funny to just see, like, like the monster just on the zip line coming, like she falls into the water here, and then she looks back and she just sees the monster, like, on the zip line, like, I'm coming to get you, bitch. I don't know why, I just thought it was really funny. Anyways, so back at the lodge, the group hears a noise coming from inside.
We don't know what's out there. It could be dangerous.
Yeah, that's That's why I'm gonna check it out.
2 seconds later.
Oh, fuck.
So after Caitlin fails to take Nick's advice, she gets her gun snatched away by the big scary man, and the gang books it out of there. It switches back to Dylan and Ryan, who are on their way to the Radio Shack. We find out a little bit more about Dylan when he tells Ryan he wants to major in quantum physics, and he's actually a lot smarter than he lets on, which is an interesting but overall pointless character development, since he really doesn't do any smart guy shit after the Radio Shack. They make it to the Radio Shack and are able to send out an SOS to whoever may be listening. Too bad it turns out to be the guys who are hunting them, and they just gave away their exact position.
Hello, how's it going out there? This is, we need help. There is a swarm of bears, and they are everywhere, and there's these hunters too, and they seem to be shooting at the bears, but also at us, which is not good, and a few of our friends are hurt, and we are in desperate need of help, so please come help us. SOS, this is an emergency. Save our ship. Come on down, please help us. Did I do good? Was that...
Swarm of bears?
Yeah.
Herd of bears.
Yeah, I've heard of bears. What?
Oh my god.
Alright.
Wait, did he say lodge?
I don't know, hold on.
2 males in the Radio Shack near the cabins. Another couple unaccounted for.
Holy shit, they're talking about us. How?
Because we just told them on the fucking radio.
You're a dummy, bitch!
They try to leave, but they're also actively being hunted by the monster, which is probably not the best time since Caitlin and company have arrived from the lodge. Dylan warns them to get to shelter through the PA system, and they manage to bust into a cabin just before the monster can get them, which happens to be the exact same cabin that the girls were trying to bust into in the first part of the game. Now the monster is actively trying to get into their cabin. Dylan manages to save them by making a high-pitched noise on the PA system to scare off the monsters. They hear gunshots coming in the direction of the pool area, and they investigate to find the body of Kaylee Hackett in the pool. I actually forgot who this was, but Chris Hackett mentions them when Ryan talks to him in the office. But yes, Kaylee and Caleb Hackett are Chris Hackett's nephew. Their parents died, so he's been watching over them since. But yeah, I thought this was kind of weird because it's played off as like a huge character death, but I didn't even remember who it was. And this is also the first time we're seeing this person in the actual game, and they're already dead.
Mission accomplished. Good work.
So Jacob is running naked through the forest and finds a camera, which is entered in as evidence. Also, where the hell is he gonna put that? He meets Emma, who just got off of the zip line, and she punches him for leaving her at the pier. But like, what the hell? Like, she's the one who swam off without saying anything.
You're a dummy, bitch!
In the middle of her bitch fit, they hear a monster and run off. Jacob gets caught, but because of the blood they smeared on his face, the creature doesn't seem to notice him. He then gets his ass caught in a bear trap and knocked out by this old man and his Goliath of a son. So it cuts back to the pool, and everyone is pretty butthurt over Kaylee's death, but Nick gets a little too touchy-feely with Abby, so she shoves him in a pool, and he flips the hell out. They take him into the pool house to dry off, but once again, doesn't take no for an answer, and Abby has a chance to shoot him since his eyes don't look right. Nick then literally explodes into the creature and rips Abby's head off. I gotta admit, I didn't think the game would have the balls to respect my choice here. You have to understand that I was coming off of the game Until Dawn, where you get a lot of these types of choices to do or not do something, and the result will turn out just the same. I at least gotta give the game some credit for punishing me when I make a wrong decision. But I was still skeptical that even if I would have shot Nick, he would have transformed and killed Abby anyways, since it looked like this animation that they're using here could have been used in both outcomes. But more on that later. So Emma makes it back to the campfire, But since no body is there, she uses all of her remaining brain power, and through deductive reasoning, she determines everyone probably went back to the lodge. So she uses the light of her phone to make it back when she finds the old man and his mountain of muscles he calls a son in the middle of a lesson on how to safely capture one of these creatures. They then spot her and check her for bites. She kicks the old man in the face and runs into the lodge while the hunters yell and shoot, potentially at her or potentially at another creature. She enters the lodge but doesn't find anyone there, so she decides to take shelter in the broken down car. Back at the pool house, everyone is still coming to terms with Nick killing Abby when a woman outside says she wants to come in and talk to them. Turns out it's Laura from the beginning of the game, looking like a grizzled badass with her eye patch on here. She then explains what happened to her and Max in a flashback. This section gives a lot of backstory and exposition, but it's pretty boring on your second playthrough since not much happens despite the choices you've made in the story up until this point. Basically, the cop turns out to be Travis Hackett, Chris Hackett's brother, and he holds them hostage in the holding cells of his jail. Max and Laura slowly come to the realization that the creature that attacked them was a werewolf and was actually Chris Hackett. But they don't have any proof of this until a month later when Travis, tired of all their questions and bitching, handcuffs Lorna next to Max's cell on a full moon, and she watches Max transform. She doesn't listen to Travis's warning and gets too close to his cell, causing her to lose an eye when werewolf Max swipes at her. Since the swipe also hit the object Lorna was cuffed to, she's set free and she takes this time to explore the sheriff's office a little. And she finds a syringe with some knockout juice in it, which she hides in her cell. And also cracks the password on this computer where Chris Hackett tells Travis to send a cease and desist letter to the Bizarre Yet Bonafide podcast since they're talking about the Hag of Hackett's Quarry. Travis returns the next morning as promised, and is surprised to find both of them still there. He begins to trust them a little more, and gives them some lecture on werewolves, and when questioned, he says they're in just as much trouble as he is with his family. Since Laura is a vet student, Travis thinks she can help his family for some reason.
So what's the plan?
Well, that's where I'm hoping you'll come in.
Me?
Yeah. 'Cause your studies.
I haven't even started.
Well, you're the best option I got. Maybe there's another way. Whatever you believe, there's got to be some science. And you do science.
A few days later, it's confirmed that Chris Hackett is the werewolf that bit Max when he actually comes to the jail saying Bobby told him there was a car Travis wanted scrapped a month ago, and Travis confesses to him. It's also later confirmed that Bobby is the mountain of meat that has been stalking the counselors in the woods this whole time. Chris also mentions 2 hikers that went missing, saying that was Bobby and Caleb's doing. And Travis implies that he helped cover up the whole thing. This will come to light at the end of the game, but basically they've been peppering in these clues about 2 missing hitchhikers on the Hackett's property every so often. So the next day, Laura pretends to be sick, and when Travis comes in, she pops him with the syringe and he passes out. They take a few guns and shells with silver bullets in them and head off to kill Chris Hackett. She also claims after she killed Kaylee Hackett, she went to the island to check if Max got better and got bit in the process. Which, leaving Max on the island was probably the smartest thing to do besides getting bit, since he's landlocked and everything. Ryan doesn't think Chris is guilty and snatches the gun away from Laura. It then switches perspectives, showing what's happening at the Hackett house. And it shows the matriarch of the family, Constance Hackett, who teases werewolf Nick before Jacob is dragged in and put in the other electrified cage. No matter what dialogue options you choose, Jacob sounds like a little bitch, which really pisses me off, because Jacob was a pretty funny guy up until just about now.
Let me go! Let me fucking go! Get your hands off me! 2 seconds later.
Please let me go. Okay, I didn't mean for this to happen. Please, please.
your old money to Jay.
So, back at the pool house, Laura smooth talks her way to getting Ryan to lower the gun, and also learns where Chris Hackett's mom lives. Laura wants to go there to kill Chris Hackett, but Ryan decides to go with Laura to clear Chris Hackett's name, and if it comes down to it, stop her from killing him, while Kaylee and Dylan go to the lodge and try to get the car started. They make it to the Hackett house, but they both fall through a weak floor into a mine, which, now that I think about it, is probably the most contrived thing I've heard this entire game. And we see Laura react negatively to falling into the water, which makes sense why Nick reacted so negatively to falling into the water. I guess it's like a werewolf thing, like werewolves are kind of like cats, so they freak out when you put them in water, something like that. Anyways, this part kind of pissed me off, but a lot of the characters in some articles I've read online have been saying that there's a budding romance between Laura and Ryan in this section, but I never got that impression. The stuff they do and say is more on the tier of friendship. Even if you do see this as romance, I doubt she would leave Max for some dude she just met. The worst is from the characters. There's a section later where both Caitlin and Ryan are bummed that they didn't get their chance with Ryan, saying he will probably fall for Laura instead, because she's a strong, independent woman type. But the last they saw of these two, Ryan was pointing her shotgun at her.
So, Ryan and Laura, huh?
Yeah, there were definitely sparks flying there.
Yeah, I know, but I couldn't tell if it was angry sparks or, sexy sparks.
Definitely felt like sexy sparks.
Doesn't she already have a boyfriend?
Yeah, but Ryan's Ryan.
What?
Definitely felt like sexy sparks.
Yeah, that makes sense. Even the fortune teller at the end of the chapter portrays them as the Lover's Tarot card, which you can tell is them because it bears a striking resemblance to them. Oh yeah, and Laura got her eye back because of her werewolf powers, but it for some reason didn't heal the scars around her eye. Like, you'd kind of think that the scars around her eye would heal first, and then her eye would maybe heal later or something. Anyways, other than some non-romantic moments, they find some flesh which is entered into evidence, as well as some clues showing the Hacketts were bootleggers back in the day. Anyway, so back at the lodge, Dylan and Caitlin actually try to get the car started, which these dudes should have already been did. Emma seems to have been hiding into the car, and they relay to her what happened to Abby.
Okay.
Can you fix it?
No.
Oh.
Not without some parts. Specifically, a rotor arm.
Okay, so, total hypothetical, but if I was like a huge asshole and I wanted to break down the van so we'd have to spend another night here, what exactly would I need to do?
Well, you'd probably break the fuel line, or, I don't know, rip out the rotor arm. And yes, that would make you a total asshole.
Okay, and what does a rotor arm look like again?
It's like an arm that's all rotary. You know, it's under the little black dome with the leads poking out. Jake, you do realize that even if we somehow did get stuck out here, one more night with Emma wouldn't make a difference. Trust me, Chick's made up her mind.
Yeah. Sure. Guess we'll just have to find out.
Seriously, with how perceptive she is, you would think the same person who was smart enough to have this elaborate plan of getting Nick into Abby's pants would have recognized that Jacob disabled the car and has the rotor arm. Maybe she's just playing dumb and she doesn't want to get in trouble with the group. But if so, we get no indication or soliloquy about this. Anyways, so while Dylan and Kaylee go to the junkyard to find a rotor arm, Laura and Ryan have found their way into the Hackett house's basement and find Jacob and who we can assume is Werewolf Nick. We then get a heartbreaking scene where Travis the cop tells his mother Kaylee is dead and she blows up on him. Meanwhile, I try to get Jacob out, but
can't add up my numbers cause I'm stupid.
And accidentally released the werewolf, but since they were in separate cages, Jacob is still safe. So Ryan decides to rescue him later. Also, Laura makes too much noise and is captured while Ryan runs off, but he's also captured by Bobby off screen. So, yeah. There is also a song which plays in this section, but it's kind of out of place since it just shows random objects around the mine. I think it would have been cooler if we saw what all the other characters were doing in this exact moment instead of just static shots of the mine. So this is kind of weird. Dylan and Caitlin get to the scrapyard, and then it just cuts right back to the Hackett house. Like, come on, stay with one scene for more than a minute. Anyways, so Constance Hackett grabs Laura's gun, but gets her face blown off. Then Laura runs off while Bobby finds and sticks a knife in Ryan's side, and Ryan escapes the room by using a dumbwaiter, but scary Bobby is right after him. So he runs away and is able to trap Bobby.
You can't hide from me in my own house, fucker!
You're a fucker.
It switches back to Laura, who's just been found out by Constance's husband, and he wants to make her suffer for killing his wife. I absolutely hate this next part. Regardless if you choose the option to kill this guy or run away from him, the light from the lamp is blinding Laura because of her dumb werewolf eyes, so she smashes the fuse box, which is coincidentally in the house, which means no matter what, Werewolf Nick is freed, and if Jacob is down there with him, he will die while trying to use a Jedi mind trick on him instead of escaping.
You're a dummy, bitch!
It really pisses me off because they did my boy Jacob so dirty in the last quarter of the game, especially on my second playthrough. So Travis comes in and has the drop on her, but lets Laura get away. Ryan is trying to escape when Bobby catches up to him, and this leads to the funniest choice I've seen in the game so far.
Family first. Besides, I'll get in trouble. Ow! You stabbed me!
Yeah, fucking hurts, don't it?
I ain't never been stabbed before.
Leave me alone.
Ow, it really hurts. Dad!
What the fuck? Laura meets an almost dead Ryan, and he decides to let Laura bite him so they can both get a small HP boost, and together they explore the attic.
It's not your fault. I didn't have to come here.
I shouldn't have let you come.
It then finally switches back to Dylan and Caitlin, who have been searching for the rotor arm, but instead they find Max and Laura's old car, which hasn't been destroyed or sold yet in 2 months. Anyways, this unlikely victory is short-lived since they immediately have to destroy it to kill a werewolf. And with no other option, they decide to go back to the lodge and make their final stand. It then shows what Emma is doing back at the lodge, and she finds some shotgun shells with silver in them and the secret surveillance room in Chris's office. Anyways, Ryan and Laura explore the attic and find Chris Hackett chained up and werewolfified. And as ordained by every horror movie protagonist, they politely wait for him to break his chains and then the floor, causing them to fall right on top of Bobby, his dad, and Travis. I thought this was kind of interesting, but since I decided to stab Bobby, he's actually unable to hold off Chris from killing him and his dad. I don't know, I just thought that was kind of an interesting choice. Laura also turns into a werewolf and attacks Travis. Ryan finally puts a stop to the cycle and kills Chris, causing Laura to change back. Travis relays to them as smugly as he can that Chris was not the first werewolf, and the real OG werewolf is a boy named Silas that he's been tracking for quite some time, and was the thing that ran Max and Laura off the road 2 months ago. Ryan says he saw it at the cabins when he was defending the radio tower, and with a little convincing, Travis gets the help of Laura and Ryan to hunt him down and end the cycle once and for all. Max then wakes up being cured of being a werewolf. I then stupidly chose for Max to swim back to the shore, and he survives for all of about 2 feet before a werewolf wrecks his shit.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Caitlin and Dylan make it to the lodge and prepare while it's raining since werewolves don't like water.
Every dusk and dawn all through the summer. What doesn't kill you will make you stronger. We're here to lead the way. Mates for life, we're proud to say. Shout it, shout and shout it loud. We're Hacketeers. 2 months and you never learn the words?
Get him!
The werewolf busts out of a damn painting in the fireplace instead of just simply dropping down the rest of the chimney. But I get it, they wanted it to look cool, so, whatever.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
They get chased around a little bit before Emma realizes that they're out there and rolls them a silver buckshot she found in the cellar. But because I'm a goober, I actually failed this QTE, and Kate gets her wig pushed back. No! What the fuck? God damn it! I guess I fucked up in the combat somehow. I was so like what the fuck happened? I'm gonna have to go back and play that fucking clip, see if I actually got that fucking son of a bitch. So Travis, Ryan, and Laura are on their way to kill Silas, but Silas is a straight G and pulls up on them before they run his ass over with the car. But when they check, he isn't there anymore, so they decide to pursue him on foot.
This is where we went off the road 2 months ago.
You're trying to decide if you should shoot me in the head right now. Go ahead. If that's what you want, I won't stop you.
What?
I actually really liked this scene. It really tied everything together for Travis's character. Like, yeah, he kept them prisoner for 2 months, but if the Hackett family actually caught them first, they would have just killed them. Travis is the one that's been trying to keep the peace and not have any more blood on the family's name. He even feels so bad about it, he gives Laura the opportunity to kill him for ruining their lives. So Laura decides not to straight cap Travis right there. But before they start the hunt for Silas, Ryan offers Laura a blood vial to stay safe, which I choose to put on Laura.
Thanks. That means a lot.
Yeah, no worries. I guess.
Hey, you offered it. It's like, dude, if you wanted it for yourself, just don't offer it. Stop being a simp. After a little bit of searching, if Travis trusts you enough, he'll tell you how all this started. Basically, Kaylee and Caleb felt bad that Silas was in a traveling sideshow attraction and was being kept in a cage by Eliza, who is assumed to be his mother, although from her age, I'd assume it was his grandmother, but maybe the curse stopped him from aging or something? Anyways, they decided to start a fire as a distraction so they could get Silas out, but the fire grew too fast and ended up killing Eliza, who turns into the hag of Hackett's Quarry, and is also the old Bick that we've been seeing in between chapters this whole time. However, since it was a full moon, Silas bit Kaylee and Caleb after he transformed and has been on the run ever since. Also, the sheriff of the area died in the fire, but it's unclear if he died trying to free Silas with the kids, or he died responding to the fire. Maybe they'll explore this in a DLC or something, but regardless, that's how Travis was promoted to sheriff. Anyways, they find Silas, who's recovering after getting hit by the car in his old cage, and Travis orders Laura to shoot him while the ghost of Eliza is begging you not to. I honestly thought at this point that maybe Silas was conscious and maybe he wouldn't attack us.
Shoot. Shoot. What are you doing?
Just the trigger. Shoot, you stupid girl!
So Silas killed everybody but Laura, and not because she chose not to shoot him, but because she had blood on her face. Yeah, I know it was a real stupid move by me. Eliza then talks to you one last time, and even though you killed all the Hacketts except for Caleb, she still vows to haunt you, the player. Like, come the fuck on, everyone is dead. Thanks for nothing, I guess. What the hell is this? I can't believe it's an actual montage. I thought these went extinct back in the late 80s. At least in Until Dawn, they had a section where at the end the teens were interviewed by the police and you got to see everybody's final thought. But in this game, there's no closure at all, and especially with this strangely upbeat music. At least with streaming mode off, it plays Daydream Believer, but still, it is kinda cool after the game is done, you get to hear a small section from the Bizarre Yet Bonafide podcast, where they go over all the evidence you collected throughout the game, and the mystery behind the two missing hikers at Hackett's Quarry, which we heard Chris say was Bobby and Caleb's doing, are brought to justice. Anyways, it's pretty clear I got the bad ending. And I was not willing to take this ending lying down. So I decided to do a second playthrough, but to try a few things differently to get the good ending, where none of the main characters die or get infected. So I let Emma and Abby break into the cabin, and Abby takes a small toy so she can send it back to a kid. I kept everything pretty much the same from this point on, besides having Caitlin kiss Ryan in the Truth or Dare section, which instead of looking like the beginning of a budding romance like with Dylan, it was just awkward.
Always happy to please.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
I feel like they only focused on the Dylan love interest, especially since Caitlin doesn't really seem to interact with Ryan all that much. I also had Nick kiss Abby when he chases after her, which did absolutely nothing to the plot. Although I did think it was a little interesting when I chose for Ryan not to shoot Bobby when he was dragging Nick away after he gets bit. I thought maybe he would take Nick away and Abby would be saved later. But Nick bites Bobby's finger and Bobby yeets his finger off with a gun, which I thought was kind of a cool and interesting bit of foreshadowing.
Ow! You stabbed me! I ain't never been stabbed before! Dad!
I guess that wasn't the first time he shot his finger off. Anyways, so it's more of the same. Jacob gets cucked by Nick. Emma swims away like a bitch. Jacob still doesn't find any clothes and runs into the forest trying to save Abby like fucking Tarzan. However, this one scene is different if you choose for the girls to break into the cabin in the beginning.
What's missing? It pulled the wire.
Oh, fuck! It's spreading! You have to cut it off! Cut it off! Cut it off! Yes, fucking do it!
I gotta admit, I was actually taken back by this. I guess since the girls busted down the door in the beginning, they're able to get inside easier, and Silas doesn't run after them and instead waits for Dylan to make a mistake. Although, don't expect this too much more throughout the story though. Also, looking at Dylan's stump in later cutscenes really weirds me out. Anyways, one thing I did decide to change was to shoot Nick, and just as I suspected, he transforms anyways and jumps out the window even though Abby drops the gun and she's just as defenseless as the first time. Then this happens. Oh no! I'm having glitch flashbacks again! But for real though, I just thought it was kind of funny that in both games they had a lighting glitch with an object in your character's hand. Also, because I chose for Emma to pick up the fireworks in the safe this time, she throws them at Bobby and his dad in this scene. But how? You're telling me she had the fireworks in her snatch while she was swimming? Anyways, Jacob still gets man-napped. Laura still tells her long-ass story. Apparently, you can actually disarm, or if you're bad at QTEs, shoot Travis instead of hitting him with the needle to escape. But I wasn't going to subject myself to another playthrough with that exposition again. And besides, I'm trying to get the good ending here. Something to take note of is that with Abby alive here, Laura will actually see her silver bracelet and pack it into a shell just in case she needs it. Remember this for later. It's a huge plot hole. Anyways, there's more non-existent romance between Laura and Ryan as they explore the mine. Also, why did they decide to do this with Emma?
Dylan, you're,
I don't think they really gave her much redeeming qualities in this game. Anyways, I seem to have remembered my basic math skills on this playthrough and freed Jacob. But he just runs into the forest and cries. Like, what the hell? He's one of my favorite characters and they're just gonna do my boy like this?
Stop crying, you big baby.
Like, what? He starts crying because he didn't tell Emma the truth and he thinks she's dead? First off, you're assuming way too much, my dude. And second, crying in the forest is probably a good way to get yourself killed. You know, with all the werewolves and whatnot.
And what, risk another run-in with Captain Deliverance?
It's for your own good.
Anyways, Laura shoots Constantine's face off. I actually chose to attack Bobby's dad, and she still cuts off the power before killing him. She does it anyways! She does it anyways! I was surprised Travis didn't kill her in this part. He doesn't seem too pissed about her killing his dad since he lets Laura steamroll right through him. One thing that is new is Emma now has Abby as company down in the cellar, or the storm shelter, whatever it is. It's also very hard to see anything down in here because they don't use a flashlight. I hope Emma's followers were worth it. They then find some silver shells before heading into the surveillance room. I also make sure Max stays on the island like a good little boy should before Caitlin and Dylan face off against werewolf Caleb. Abby and Emma pass Caitlin the shell, and I ended up failing the QTE again! What? No, no, no. That was bullshit. That was fucking bullshit. That was fucking bullshit. But thank the Nine Divine, they allow you to save a character 3 times on your second playthrough, so Caleb can take this here L. I also experienced a soft crash retrying this, but it wasn't that much of an issue, since the game likes to save after every single decision. Everything else plays out how it should. This time I make sure to shoot Silas, and Eliza seems only slightly more pissed off than she was in the first ending. We still get the dumb "where are they now" end credits, but this time all the main characters and Travis are alive. However, during the ending podcast, it shows that the teens are charged with the Hackett family's murder. At this point, I was pretty freaking pissed, but I did notice something. I only collected 9 out of the 10 pieces of evidence. So I replayed it from chapter 7 and sat through the exposition again, but made sure this time to grab the final piece of evidence to see if anything would be different. I did mess up a little bit and forgot to have Abby pick up the silver shell, so she can't roll anything to Caitlin at the final fight at the lodge, which is dumb as all hell, but I'll explain in the plot holes section. So Caitlin and Dylan take refuge in the kitchen with Caleb hot on their trail, although because the girls busted into the cabin and Abby kept the toy and lost her bag in the kitchen, Caitlin is able to benefit from this contrived plot point and throws the toy into the freezer to cause a distraction and lock Caleb inside, where he succumbs to the cold after his werewolf powers are taken away. This time, the bizarre yet bona fide podcast puts everything together and the counselors are exonerated. Okay, now that all of the story is out of the way, time for the plot holes. As you can probably tell, if none of the counselors die, then you need to collect all 10 pieces of evidence, 1 in each chapter, to get the good ending, which is probably a good way to get people to replay the game. Hell, it got 2.5 playthroughs out of me. But in my opinion, you shouldn't need all the evidence to exonerate the kids. Like, okay, the 10 pieces of evidence are as follows. The blood vial Abby finds in the first chapter, which is confusing because multiple characters come across the vials, but they aren't added to the evidence, only in this one specific chapter, picked up by a specific character.
Is it Dylan's?
Also, why does she assume it's Dylan's? I know his Radio Shack is there, but if anything, I think the mysterious loner Ryan would have something to do with it. The second is the torn bags from the hikers that went missing that are found in the merchandise shack Jacob and Emma raid. The third is the bloated corpse that Jacob finds in the bottom of the pier and is one of the missing hikers. Which that one makes sense, but it's completely missable if you choose to break the gas pipeline or not dive in after the rotor arm. The fourth is a photo of the werewolf itself that Emma can choose to take, which I was almost 100% sure in my first playthrough that would get me killed if I did that, so I missed it. The claw marks outside of the Radio Shack is the fifth one, which could be a bear as much as anyone is concerned. The sixth is the memory card from the hiker's camera, which you think a camper would have found by then since it's right next to the end of the zip line. The seventh, and in my opinion, the most inconsequential one, is the cease and desist letter from Travis to the Bizarre Yet Bonafide podcast in relation to them talking about the Hag of Hackett's Quarry found in the police station. Maybe I'm just a little salty, but I had all the evidence except for this one in my second playthrough, and the dipshits on the podcast, and I guess the courts as well, didn't have enough to exonerate them? Just like Chris said, it's a scary story that might scare off people from camp. Maybe it's just because the cease and desist letter may have been fake, but still, it's pretty low level evidence compared to some of the other stuff. Anyways, the eighth piece of evidence is a piece of scarred flesh, which can be directly tied to the hikers and is found in the mines by Ryan and Laura, and in my opinion is a pretty important piece of evidence for obvious reasons. The ninth is Kaylee's letter to her grandma about her life as a werewolf and is found after Ryan is shanked. However, it's not really too incriminating since it's pretty vague. The last one is trail cam footage which dates back years and shows werewolves on it. It's just kind of silly how you have to find all of them in order to get the good ending, where the Hacketts are brought to justice. I mean, I feel like the cease and desist letter, the claw marks, and Kaylee's letter could have been left out completely. But besides the arbitrary nature of collecting these arbitrary pieces of evidence, the plot holes don't stop at that. Like when Jacob came back to the group, why didn't he just say he had the rotor arm tucked in his tighty whities so they could escape? I mean, when he was crying in the forest, did he not feel it tickling his taint? Also, Caitlin really didn't put two and two together on this one. She seems like the smartest one in the group, and she couldn't figure out that right after she told Jacob how to break the car magically was broken. Like, it even looks like she gives him a look after Chris can't start the car, like she's in the loop or something. Also, Abby should have been able to pass Caitlin a silver shell even though she didn't pick up any in the storm shelter, cause Laura breaks her bracelet to give her a silver shell. And the last plot hole I can think of is when Caitlin and Dylan kill the werewolf in the scrapyard. Like, who actually was that? Like the werewolf, like who actually was the werewolf? In my playthrough, there were 6 werewolves. Chris, Kaylee, Caleb, Silas, Max, and Nick. Kaylee died, and Chris was chained up in the attic, so that leaves Nick and Caleb, and since Silas is clearly a white one, because he's an albino, all they had to do was find the werewolf still alive under the car while they ran off, and then we could have assumed it was Caleb. But it appears like the car killed it, so who the hell actually was that? As for the actors' performances as a whole, everyone did a pretty good job. I think they balanced comedy and drama pretty well for the most part. The only voice actor I kinda had an issue with was Justice Smith, who played Ryan. He just sounds like he's really tired all the time.
There's supposedly an old woman who died in a fire a few years back. She haunts the woods looking for her lost baby boy.
Maybe that's the type of voice they were going for, but for me it was kinda distracting. As for Emma, like I've said before, something is just wrong with her face in here. I do think it gets a little bit better when she ties her hair back. I think it kind of frames her face a little bit better. Also, I really wish we could have gotten more of Constance Hackett, the grandmother. I thought her portrayal as the grandmother was awesome. I also kind of thought she'd play a bigger part in the story, but she dies not that long after she's introduced. Even if you fail the QTE, where she struggles with Laura and her gun, she still disappears after the scene is over. One thing I liked was, unlike Until Dawn, with the Dr. Hill sections, the sections with Eliza, where you can see a little bit of the future if you collect the tarot cards in between the chapters, are pretty cool. She even bitches at you like a pissed off grandma if you don't collect any cards during a chapter, which is a little funny. There's even an extra card called the Hierophant that you can find in the final chapter, and she shows you a moment just before her death, which was a cool reward for exploring, even if it doesn't really do all that much. Okay, we talked about some bad plot holes, but let's talk about some good stuff I liked in the game. I really liked how the game made me live with my choices. I even tried to save scum my way out of a few situations, but it saves literally right after you make a choice, but before it shows you the outcome, so it forces you to live with your terrible decisions, unless you want to start back at the beginning of the chapter, which isn't even worth it at that point, since you can't skip any of the cutscenes. Another thing that I will say about the story that I think should have been explored is what happened in those 2 months at the camp before everything went to shit. I think it could have been a way more impactful moment when we find Kaylee dead, but instead it has as much impact as Danny's death in The Last of Us Part 2. It probably also would have been a good chance to show us around the camp before they throw everything into darkness, as I constantly found myself getting turned around very frequently in this game, since everything's in the dark. I know there's a map in the pause screen, but it's just not the same. Also, since they've been at camp for 2 months, you're telling me they weren't suspicious when they couldn't find Mr. Hackett, Caleb, or Kaylee on a full moon? I feel like that would have been a cool thing to leave in for us to connect later. I mean, they kind of did that when Ryan comments that Caleb and Kaylee left halfway through, but still. My last complaint is the lack of closure we get. Like, what the hell? They couldn't show us one cutscene at the end where all of our characters are getting arrested or walking out of the courtroom exonerated, or even to see all the characters together after everything happened. I don't know. I just feel like the ending of the game was super rushed, and I think it really shows. Sometimes a story is only as good as its ending, and in this case, the ending was definitely impacted by the overall enjoyment and replayability for me. Okay, so what do I make of all this? First off, I would say the game has a lot of replay value. You can even play it in different filters, like the indie filter, which kicks up the saturation to 11, which is pretty cool in the first part, but after it gets dark it's hard to even tell that it's on. The black and white filter, or the 80s filter, which adds a VHS look to it. Obviously, the game has a lot of choices. And besides not being able to skip the cutscenes, you'll probably have a fun time exploring all the different outcomes. Graphically, the cutscenes are beautiful, especially the ones you can tell are made for the PS5. However, the PS4 version is definitely downgraded. The water, lighting, and shadow effects just look like Bobo sometimes.
No! No! No!
As for gameplay, it's as basic as they come. And so is the camera controls. I was actually pissed the game wasn't in isometric view like in their breakout title Until Dawn, since I think that was actually one of the things in the game that they actually did better. It really gives you a claustrophobic feeling, like there could be anything lying just beyond your view. What's more infuriating is the game does go into isometric, but only in the prologue chapter and when you find a tarot card. Anyways, now for the big question. Is it worth the price? I would have to say no. $70 on the PS5 is just too much for this 10 to 13 hour playthrough game. Maybe picking it up on a sale would be better. I know I kind of spoiled this game in the review, but it's definitely a game that needs to be experienced to be understood. And I can see this game being a lot of fun if you're watching someone who doesn't play video games very often. If I had to give it a number ranking, with 5 being an average game, I would give it a hard 6, slightly above average. A definite improvement over Until Dawn, but once again its ambitions overtook what it could deliver. But just like I said in my Last of Us Part 2 review, at least they tried something new. I feel like a lot of games nowadays just try to copy other games, or they try to go for the games as a service model. But it was really nice just to sit down and play an actual branching path narrative, even if it failed in some aspects. Some big examples of this were killing my character for dumb reasons like Jacob's death, but other than that, it was actually good to see a game that respects my choices and subtly crafts the narrative around them. If there is one thing we can agree this game blessed the world with, it wouldn't be the gameplay, the story, or even the characters. I'm of course talking about the peanut butter pops. We must manifest these in the real world someday.
Pop, pop, peanut butter pops. Pop, pop, pop them in your mouth. Pop, 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 peanut butter pops. Pop, pop, pop them in your mouth.